Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books, and I've got another book sat right in front of me that I'm about to talk about. I will let you know it's very hot today and I've turned my fan off for you, so that's love. But it does mean I've got the windows open, so you might hear doggies, you might hear a bit of talking, you might hear cats, because I've got a cat. Basically, there may be outside noise. Now, today's book is Pear Shaped by Stella Newman. I've had this book for a very, very long time, and I realised I hadn't read it, and when I opened it up to read it, it looked like I'd read a chapter of it a very long time ago and kind of forgotten about it. So as you can see, there is unfortunately a tear on this book. Apologies to Stella Newman because it's ripped right in the middle of the name. But yes, a novel about love, heartbreak and dessert. So let's do that blurb for you, shall we? Sophie Klein walks into a bar one Friday night and her life changes. She meets James Stevens, charismatic, elusive, and with a hosiery model ex who casts a long, thin shadow over their budding relationship. He's clever, funny, and shares her greatest pleasure in life: to eat and drink slightly too much, and then have a little lie down. Sophie's instinct tells her James is too good to be true, and he is. So the content guide on the back says humour, tearjerker, drama, friendship, love and sex, and I imagine this is retargeted kind of like maybe adult. I think there might be some young adults who would enjoy it, but it's got very adult themes, I'll say that. So you don't want kids reading this book. Obviously it's about a little girl who in the midst of a very fresh relationship, and there are themes of emotional abuse. One of the prolonged storylines about weight, considering that it was written in about the early to mid noughties, I think. Let me just double check that. It was 2011. In my mind it was 2008 for some bizarre reason, I don't know why. Ultimately this was actually a really, really good book, but there were a couple of points in the book where I wasn't quite sure where it was going to go. There were certain points when the main character Sophie was a bit unlikable, but as you kind of get deeper you realise that in a way this book was rather progressive. I know that sounds strange to say that of a book that was released in 2011. When it's 2021, it's only been 10 years. But considering the more recent things around body positivity and what I think about stuff that, like the magazines and things that I read like at uni, because I graduated in 2010, so it's not far off my late teenage years. And when I go back to kind of like my main teenage years, there was lots of magazines, you know. I feel like we're starting to phase out a lot of the magazines now. Or maybe I'm just not aware of them because I don't really read them. Who knows? There's certain things in this book that kind of made me a bit frustrated about Sophie, because she talks about like ballooning to a size 12. But yeah, that kind of part of the storyline reminds me a bit of Sarah Millican, because there's a bit in Sarah Millican's one of her stand-ups where she talks about kind of celebrity culture and diets and that kind of thing, and she talks about picking up a magazine and reading that a celebrity had ballooned to a size 12, and it kind of made me think of that when I read this book. The idea of somebody ballooning to a size 12 is so ridiculous, and it's just like, I'm a size 12, and actually, at this point, I'm probably the healthiest I've ever been. So the idea that somebody at a size 12 or 14 is like absolutely massive, it's got kind of like this warped idea of beauty, which, to be fair, we are still battling, especially with body positivity, because I'll admit I've got my thoughts and theories. I'm not exactly going to share those because I feel like it's not my place as somebody who is a size 12 to share my thoughts on the body positivity movement. I'm just going to say that nobody should feel bad about themselves. Everybody should feel comfortable in the skin they're in. Everybody should be able to wear whatever the hell they want. But also, if somebody is aware they've got bad habits, there is nothing wrong with wanting to better yourself. That's the crux of what I believe. There's nothing wrong with knowing what suits you. There's nothing wrong with wanting to wear stuff that flatters your shape. Or if you do want to just pull on some joggers and just like an oversized t-shirt, you can wear it. But yeah, Sophie has a very interesting relationship with her own body. She works in kind of the desserts section of kind of like this big research company. It's kind of like a supermarket, but it's not. Basically her job is to taste desserts, and it sounds like the best job in the world. And then, as it says, you know, she's come out of quite a long-term relationship with a very, very nice guy who loved her, but she just didn't she just doesn't love him anymore. I mean, fair play. If you no longer love somebody, what's the point of dragging it out if you know it's not going to go anywhere? When she meets James, James just... You know how sometimes people just have like that inner radar where they're just like, okay, creep alert, like something is wrong here. Sophie does not have that when she meets James, but the first introduction of James sent my little radar flashing saying, this is not right, this is all going to go horribly wrong. Which, to be fair, it does say on the book blurb, but the way the character is introduced, it's just that whole thing of the people who have that inner kind of alarm system, bells are ringing straight away saying this is not a nice person. But Sophie has just been so seduced by him that she cannot see it. Throughout the whole book you've got her questioning things that he does and her friends going, yeah, you're right to be questioning it, and then she goes, oh well actually, but we get along so well and we talk so well and you know, and we've got an amazing sex life and all this. But then like he disappears for ages and she's just there going, is this what an adult relationship is? Because she feels like she's never had like a relationship like this before. In a way she feels like James is too good for her, and James just makes very interesting comments throughout the book targeting her weight. And throughout the book, for him, she kind of loses weight. There's points when she's just like, oh, and I finally got into that size 8 dress. Even when she is thin, in her words, James is still making comments about her body and saying that she's got a fat ass or like big legs or whatever. And as possibly indicated by the title of the book, she's described as being pear-shaped, even though it's her life that goes pear-shaped as well, but she's described as having a small waist and a big bum. And I'll admit that the dresses and things that were described in the book, I was just like, I need dresses like that because I've got a small waist and a big bum. Yeah, so the fashion described in the book was like my dream wardrobe. It's like the 50s kind of pin-up style dresses and things have always been kind of like my favourite, and there's a few of those kind of dresses described in the book and I'm just like, oh, I'd love to have that kind of wardrobe. I will say that because there's a lot of concentration on like food and baking, there are recipes at the end of this book which sound amazing. Even though you're looking at her relationship with her ex, her current relationship with James, and how that all goes pear-shaped, and then you see her friendships and relationships with people from work and her personal life and her family life as well, you realise at some point that it turns out that she's kind of fallen out of love with herself, and that's why she's making all these horrible comments about her body all the way through. Because at first she came across as unlikable because of the way she was talking about her body, and I don't mean that like in a really, really nasty way. It's just like, it was more a case of, I don't think I could be friends with somebody like this because they would make me feel terrible about myself. But then there comes a point when she's kind of trying to get her mind back. There's a point in the book where she has this revelation about what her relationship is with herself, and she stands up to a group of people and says, isn't this supposed to be kind of about moderation? You know, I still like my sweets and so I'm going to eat sweets. This, you know, food isn't just about fuel, we're allowed to enjoy it. And she starts to work on that, her relationship with food, her relationship with herself, and through that she starts to establish the relationship that she had with James. Does this make any sense? Because, I mean, it says he's charismatic and elusive, and that's probably the two best words to describe him, which is probably why they use them. She completely falls under James's spell, even though he keeps her, like, even further than an arm's length away, because, like, he'll just randomly call up. If she tries to call him, he doesn't answer. He'll just randomly call out of the blue and say, right, I'm taking him out on Friday night. And then he doesn't talk to her for long periods of times. So it's that kind of question of, like, does this doesn't make the heart grow fonder? And because he's got that kind of, he's putting that distance between them, it kind of makes her fall for him even more. It's quite incredible to kind of look at it from the idea that people fall in love with, like, the wrong person every single day. somebody falls in love with somebody who is obviously completely wrong for them. And in this case, yeah, they can have like funny conversations, you know. She admits that James makes her laugh and that when it comes to their conversations, they're on the same wavelength. But then you've got the little subtle jabs, little things that shows that James is generally just not a nice guy. And yet Sophie completely falls apart when she finds out the secret. And when I say secret, I don't mean that he's married. As you can tell, I had a bit of an interesting relationship with this one because there were points when I hated Sophie. The point when she started to realise what was happening and she started to fall back in love with herself. Oh, sorry, I'm making you wobble. But yeah, the point when she kind of falls back in love with herself was the point she was like, yes, this is what I was waiting for in this book, because without it, it kind of becomes a book about narcissism. Because, I mean, James is quite narcissistic. There comes a point when Sophie, when she completely loses her mind, she goes kind of to the other side of the spectrum. She goes from obsessing over her weight in one direction to obsessing over her weight in another. And because she's a taster, she just sends out a random email to work and says, right, I'm taking a week off, I'm going to be doing some tastings from home. Really, nobody has a clue what she's doing or where she is. I mean, she's just at home and she is sleeping and eating desserts all day. Now, to some people that might not sound like a breakdown. It kind of sounds like a dream come true, just to kind of get paid to eat desserts at home and sleep. But in this instance, it becomes very clear that Sophie is actually losing her mind and her marbles, and the moment that she gets her marbles back is actually quite a magical moment. Did you get anything from me just talking about that? How many pages is this? How many pages was it? Let's have a look. It is 432 pages, and to be honest, I think it probably took me, it didn't take me that long to read it, because I was reading it kind of on my lunch breaks at work, and depending on how social I felt that day, and I actually finished it yesterday morning. Because of the Great Yorkshire Show, I had to set off quite early for work. My job is on the way to the Yorkshire Show venue, so I knew I was going to hit traffic, and I most definitely did. My shift started at 10:30. I managed to leave the house. It took me 45 minutes to get to work. With the traffic, normally takes me about 10 minutes. That tells you something. And so because I was like 20 minutes early for when I needed to like enter the building, I decided to sit in my car and read the 30 pages I had left of this book, and I was just very, very satisfied by the ending. And I've just noted there's a quote from another author that I've read on the front, Claudia Carroll, because I've just been reading her Primrose Square books. So I feel like this definitely goes further than you think. There's a quote at the back that says, if you're a girl with a passion for food, this modern city heartbreak is the book for you. But yeah, as I said, you know, it's a very strong theme through the book is Sophie's relationship with her weight. So if that kind of conversation's a bit of a trigger for you, I wouldn't recommend this book, because it does go in both directions. It goes from slightly disordered eating and kind of in both directions, as I said, you know, from the undereating to the overeating and the obsession over her weight that Sophie has throughout the majority of the book, which is part of what I didn't like about it. Oh, sorry, that was my ankle clicking. Did you hear that? Oh. Because of that storyline, I was wondering how well this book had aged. But when it came to the point where she has that moment of going, hang on a second, why am I obsessing over a man who was horrible to me and made some really, really horrible comments to me, and I had to chase him because he refused to say the L word, love, and, you know, was basically unattainable for a lot of our relationship. That's my warning to people. You might feel a bit weird in the beginning because of the way Sophie talks about herself. For me, the point of the book is not about her relationship. Well, I guess it is partly about her relationship with James, obviously, but it's the way that she loses herself and how she has to get it back. Pear Shaped by Stella Newman. But yeah, I definitely recommend this book to anybody who has ever looked in the mirror and thought, oh, I could lose weight, or oh, I should gain a couple of pounds. Just anybody who's ever had any issues with their weight at all, which to be honest is probably everybody. But I'll admit, I came out of this, I started this book thinking, this girl is trying to say on me, tell me that as a size 12 I'm overweight. But the fact that She is terrified of becoming a size 12. And she's not happy when she reaches a size 12, apart from the fact that she's eating cakes at home during that breakdown. Yeah, there is a good message in there, which I think a lot of people still need to hear. Pear Shaped, Stella Newman, good book, and I definitely would not recommend this for children or young teenagers. I think older teenagers probably will enjoy it. I'd say 15 up. It's like a rom-com where you know that something's going to go wrong. The point of this is that when she loses the man and then she loses her mind, she has to work out if he is what she really wants. I'm not going to tell you if she does want him or not. So, still reading Deborah Harkness. I'm getting there. I'm actually isolating this week. I was exposed at a wedding that I went to, so I am on isolation until next week. So I'm hoping to use this time with the nice weather to get through a few more books. I think my battery's about to die. But yeah, so thanks for watching. I'm going to say bye quickly now. So don't forget to subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you next week with another video. Mwah. I'm about to die, I'm about to die, I'm about to die. She meets Stephen James. Oh, his name is James Stevens.